Ready for part 2 with Canadian social media influencer, gym owner, business mentor, and entrepreneur, Matt Chenard?
Yeah.
Well, grab a carrot, settle into that ice bath because the Cold Plunge King of Canada is back for round 2. Matt shares his love for movies such as Lord of the Rings. Well, he's in luck because he's at the one podcast to rule them all. Sorry, got a little carried away. Moving on, he also shares that his favorite Christmas movie is Home Alone.
My favorite is Home Alone 3.
No one cares, Jimmy. He reveals that at one time he could juggle and was pretty close to being considered a yo-yo master. When it comes to pinpointing society's #1 problem, Matt goes deep. He thinks our desire for comfort and convenience leads us to a state of spiritual sleepiness, like a slow poison. Wise words, friend, wise words. To wrap things up, Matt asks, what is up with the recent rise in celebrities coming to faith in Jesus? And are they able to influence their followers to consider Christianity? Let's find out, shall we? Here's your host, Bubba Seaman!
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. What is up? Welcome back for part 2 with the Cold Plunge King of Canada himself, Matt Chenard. If you missed part 1, go back and listen to it. You do not want to miss out on that stuff. Whether you're struggling with issues, life issues, if you are into athletics, I mean, this guy was pretty much just one step away from being a pro hockey player. Maybe you got business aspirations and you're on the brink of burnout. This guy's got the plan for you. Let me tell you, he knows about priorities, how to get things in line and do it the right way. So go back and listen to part 1. We talked all kinds of stuff about Matt's life, being a husband, a dad, entrepreneur, life coach, Christian business owner, and how he and his wife survived the COVID lockdowns as business owners. That is good information right there. That's encouraging stuff. This week, we're going to get into a segment. You guys know how we do it. We're going to have some fun, but we're going to get a little serious towards the end probably. So to my audience, real quick, you guys know what to do. Subscribe, follow, like. If you don't do that, we don't grow. That's it. And we're trying to grow still. Leave us a 5-star rating. Follow us on social media. You want to see some embarrassing stuff, some interesting stuff? That's where it's going to be, Facebook and Instagram. Share with your friends on your social media right now. Hit that copy link button wherever it is if you like this stuff and share it. If you want some merch, if you want one of these nice hoodies right here or a hat, just email me, whatisuppodcast@gmail.com, and my wife will hook you up with whatever you want. Once you've done all that, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This is the best new podcast on the market, but of course I'm biased, okay? So, okay, Matt, thanks for coming back on, buddy. You ready to get into your segments?
Let's do it. Excited to do it.
All right. Number 1, you chose movie book review. So either movie or book. What do you got? What do you want to tell us about?
I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings.
All right.
The funny thing about that is my wife is not. So I know. Yeah, it's a shame. But she humors me. She lets us watch it once a year. If it was up to me, I'd watch them multiple times a year. That's my favorite one.
Does she like Chronicles of Narnia? Does she like The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe and those? Or has she seen those?
She's not a fan of talking animals. So that could be one part.
That's a problem then.
That's a problem. So I just kind of put those two together. So that one, and yeah, maybe I need to have the conversation. I need to know why.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm with her on the animals thing. I can understand that.
Yeah.
But if Lewis and Tolkien were buddies and Tolkien kind of helped lead Lewis back to faith in God because he got real skeptical after his mom died and World War I, his best friend died and stuff like that. And then Lewis comes and writes these just classics. And yeah, the 3 Chronicles of Narnia movies are just, I would encourage you. Is it Jalisa?
Yes.
Jalisa, please. Just give me a chance. Chronicles of Narnia, just go through them, 1, 2, and 3. Lord of the Rings, that's a much bigger investment. Okay. The Chronicles of Narnia will move faster. Okay. What's your take on why do you like them so much?
Yeah, I've tried to articulate this and understand this. I like the goodness. I like the whole story arc. I like how obviously Jackson did an amazing job of creating it. Peter Jackson, right? Yes.
The films, or yeah.
Films. Yeah, the films. Yeah, specifically the films I'm talking about and just how it invites you into the story. But there's not a lot of happiness in it. But this mission idea, like that we're invited into a mission and sometimes at the sacrifice of a lot of things in our life.
Hmm.
And I think that maybe it's because we're a little sleepier in the Western world, maybe.
Oh,
And it invites you into this understanding that life is going to be really hard and evil is real. The devil's real. All these things are real.
amen.
We're on a mission to serve the Lord. And obviously, Tolkien was a Christian, right? So that's in it. It's integrated in, and you get the taste of that. And
Yep.
yeah, just and the
I like
music too.
I like
So we're
it.
going to a symphony, Lord of the Rings symphony for my birthday in March. So I'm excited
Wow.
for that. Yeah.
Wow. That'll be interesting. Yeah, my youngest daughter, she's been a believer for a while, but she just recently came and said, "I want to get baptized this spring, this summer. It's time. Like the Lord's been telling me, I haven't done this." And we believe in believer baptism. It's an outward symbol of what you've done in your heart, in your life, repenting of sin and coming to faith in Jesus and his death, burial, and resurrection. And it's just an outward symbol. And so as I'm starting to think, I've never baptized any of my kids. We always did it at church. Well, she wants to be baptized in the river by our house with family and friends by. So I'm like, oh man, I got to get a little message prepared. And that's exactly the things I've been working on saying is it's about, it's similar to Lord of the Rings. It's kind of about dying to yourself and saying, I'm not going to give in to all my desires because the Bible's true. Like inside of all of us, we're actually not good. We're actually bad. We
Yeah.
need to die to our old self and be born again. And that's going to be in my message. So I'm glad you brought up Lord of the Rings. That's very similar message. Okay. Job rundown. Go back as far as you can up to present day, man. Can you name them all? What all have you done?
So my dad was manager. He just retired this year. He worked there for 45 years or 44 years.
A
So
manager where?
sorry, a manager of a grain bin manufacturing
Okay.
company. So
Okay.
shout out to my dad for working at one job for 44 years. He's an
Wow.
amazing worker. Took a lot from him. But so he's manager there, and we used to create rollers at our house. So nuts and bolts and all that fun stuff. That was our first official job.
Okay.
I don't remember how much we got paid. It was maybe X amount per roller we created. Then I got a newspaper. What's the
Paper route.
paper route? Thank you.
Yeah.
I did that. And in the cold winters, sometimes I wear ski goggles because it was really cold when I was delivering. And sometimes I would sit in the vehicle because I had to warm up. My mom would run the vehicle. So I don't know actually if we made anything off that on that day or they did, obviously. Then I went back and worked for my dad at the shop again. And we swept the floors 8 hours a day. So a lot of good work ethic built there. Then I worked with my mom. She's an entrepreneur as well. She owns a water store. So the spring water that people
Okay.
have in their household. Then it would have been, I believe it was the electrician job and then construction framing for a while, then
Okay.
a personal trainer. And then here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, if you guys want to hear more about some of those latter jobs, just go back to part one. He explained the electrician, the carpentry, and everything today. That's good. That's a good base of jobs right there. Okay. Third segment you picked was the number one problem we face today. So, in your opinion, and it's hard to narrow it down to one, but usually we have a few floating around out there. What do you think is one of the biggest problems we face today?
Yeah. And before we hopped on here, I was trying to think, what was it? Because you could just pick out all these different things.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
there could be a couple. One could be comfort, just the general masses. But I think spiritual sleepiness is a big one.
Okay.
Um, that can be tied into comfort and convenience.
Sure.
we've talked about this with a couple of my friends before, but a lot of people go on missions overseas, and they see a lot of spiritual things happen there, right? Like
Yeah.
miracles and all these different things. But in the Western world, we're not really, I think there's danger, like there's spiritual stuff going on, that manifestation of demons, all these different things
Yeah.
in that world. And there still is that stuff happening here. But I think it's more of a sleepiness. And I think that's almost more dangerous because you can't really point to it,
Yeah.
right? Like you become comfortable, you become all this convenience. So I think we're integrated human beings, like we're holistic human beings, mental, physical, spiritual, relational, professional. If I don't steward my body well, it's going to affect my spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't take care of my spiritual life, like the proverb about your bones rotting from anxiety and whatever else, like or my mental health, it affects everything. And I think there's a slow poison in the Western world of convenience and comfort. Now, I don't mean you have to go hop into a cold plunge. I don't mean you have to
Be
do all these
better.
things that
Yeah.
people are saying you do, but it is really dangerous. It's a slow poison because here's kind of, I'll parallel, I think about, because I've been in the health and fitness industry for 20 years. We have an epidemic of chronic disease in our world, and that's usually caused, heavily caused, and a lot of people know this, that we have an epidemic of chronic disease, but it's heavily caused by habits, lifestyle choices, chronic things compounding over time. So not going to the gym consistently, that compounds. Not eating well, that compounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then it manifests into this chronic disease, whatever that looks like, metabolic disease. Now, to reverse that, it takes a lot of time and energy. So then to think like these things underneath the surface, spiritually, physically, mentally, growing and growing and growing, it's not like an acute thing, right? Like
Sure.
if you have an addiction, like alcoholism, whatever it is, you can point to that and say, that's not good.
Yeah. That's the problem.
That's the problem. But if it's this under the surface kind of lukewarmness, that's really hard to point to. And if I don't need God, if I'm comfortable, I have money in the bank, things are going well, why would I search for anything else like that, right? That the whole richness aspect, which again, going to the last episode, it's not wrong to have money.
Nope.
But if you're relying on that to be your God, and especially if you're unaware of that, that's dangerous. And I think people usually come to Jesus, and there's lots of different ways they do come to the Lord, but
Yeah.
realize that there's something more than just this, is they go through some really hard stuff and be like, oh, I need Jesus. Like, this is what it is. Or they get everything and they realize I am not happy. I'm not
Not enough.
fulfilled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
See,
think that's fun.
since I'm new to social media, I don't have personal accounts. I just have the podcast accounts. All my feed, it's just hammered with encouraging Christian content. As you like stuff, you know how it works, the algorithms work.
Yeah.
So to me, I would say I totally understand what you're saying. Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. Amazing book. Love it. Obviously, you're familiar with it. He says the number one, his thing in that, the main demon in that book says the number one goal is to keep human beings distracted. God's Not Dead had a great scene in there where the rich, successful businessman is visiting his mom who has Alzheimer's, who is this just wonderful Christian her whole life, and she's just failing. And he says, if God is real, look at me. I'm the meanest, dirtiest person, and I'm so successful. You're the nicest person, and your brain is deteriorating. What kind of God would do? Why would God do that? And she said, like you're saying, with all of our comfort and our things, it's just a dressed up jail cell. And you only have so much time before that. You don't even know you need God. You're distracted. And one day that door is going to close.
I don't even know what I'm doing here. I mean, it's not like you even know who I am.
You prayed and believed your whole life. never done anything wrong. And here you are.
You're the nicest person I know. I am the meanest. You have dementia. My life is perfect. Explain that to me.
Sometimes the devil allows people to live a life free of trouble because he doesn't want them turning to God. Their sin is like a jail cell, except it's all nice and comfy and there doesn't seem to be any need to leave. The door is wide open. Till one day, time runs out. The cell door slams shut. And suddenly, it's too late. Who did you say you were?
But there's people like you and me out there who are trying to share the gospel and let people know. And my feed, honestly, is I see an awakening happening in the West right now. Ohio State football, all these, I think we are starting to shift. I think there's been a number of celebrities that have said, and I think we're going to get into that. I think we're starting to turn the tide on some of that stuff, and people are realizing young people have been sold a bill of goods and it's not fulfilling them. So they're searching for Jesus, I think. And hopefully, like you said, in other parts of the world, Christianity is growing like crazy, but here in like the States, not so much. Well, I think that tide is starting to turn. So hopefully there's good things to come because nothing's going to fulfill like a relationship with the Lord. Nothing permanently like that. So, okay, good stuff. Let's move to the getting to know you segment. We'll run through these. I'll try and not throw my opinions in as much and just let you share a little bit about what makes you you. So let's go with the first one. Favorite Christmas movies?
Favorite? Home Alone. Home Alone, my favorite. I laugh every single time the pranks happen.
Classic. And do you segregate like Home Alone 1 and 2 from all the rest, or are you saying you just like one or?
One or two. Those are pretty close.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, however many there are. One
Those
or
are
two.
their own thing. One and
Macaulay
two are the
Culkin,
real
right?
ones.
Yeah.
All right. Christian music, yes or no?
Yes. But honestly, for me, it's one of two things. It's either hymns,
Okay.
like more like the old hymns.
Yeah.
Or rap, Christian rap.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the Christian music today, not all of it, can be really fluffy
Sure.
sounding and not really theologically sound
Mhm.
either.
Yep.
Kind of like that emotional feel good. And yeah.
I got you.
Yes, but one of those two ends of the spectrum.
If you guys in the audience, if you check out some of his posts, you'll see after the ice bath, the early morning lift, a lot of times he's got, some Christian music going in there. And I have noticed those more sound like the traditional hymns and worship music instead of the more mainstream Christian music today. And that's funny that you say that. I've kind of picked up on that. Good
Glad.
stuff. All right, let's go to best car, worst car.
For myself or in general?
The segment, it's usually like the one that you've owned, but if you have an opinion otherwise, it could be, really up to you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, best car, worst car. So my best vehicle would have been my first vehicle. It was a 1995 Ford Ranger.
Okay.
And I drove it until 300,000 kilometers or 350,000. I don't know what that is in miles.
Oh, that's right.
It was a lot. 1.6. Is that the conversion? Yeah, 1.6, I believe. Or is that kilograms to pounds?
That's still a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So that would be my best one. And someone backed up into me and it was a write-off. So I got some money for that, which is great because it was old.
At the end of its life.
At the end of its life, it made me some money. And I can't really say I've had a really bad vehicle. On the job site, we still have this car to this day, actually. It's a 2005 Honda Fit. So again, I'm 6'6", so I'd have to squeeze in this little Honda Fit and get on the job site.
Yeah.
It still worked.
Oh,
But the
man.
battery does die really quickly. So in Canada, we have something called block heaters, well, in the cold places in the world.
Yep.
So we plug them in. For those that aren't aware, at night, if we don't plug this in, the battery's like shot. So
Can't do it.
I guess it served us well, but in that way, it's not good.
Sure. Okay. Most embarrassing moment or the dumbest thing you've ever done?
I've done a few. One thing, the dumbest thing I've ever done would be this. So I was working construction. We were actually working on the church I grew up in. We were fixing some floors and we took out the plywood. I was apprentice, obviously, at the time. And my boss told me to do something. I misheard him. I think I repeated to make sure. I thought I heard what I heard. Long story short, I took a Sawzall and cut through the floor joists of the sanctuary.
Oh, my.
And this is under 80 foot where 200 and some people every Sunday would sit.
My.
And when he saw it, he just kind of went, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. He's very gracious, but that would be absolutely the dumbest. My dad came and saved us. He, well, obviously he's a welding shop, so we MacGyvered something up, and
Okay.
it's so good. But for a while, a couple of Sundays after, we'd be standing up in worship. I'd be looking around like, is this going to collapse?
Do you hear any creak? Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. Code inspector, stay away. It's all right.
Yes.
It's held up. All right. Now, this is one most guests, if they're married, their spouses want us to keep this one in there. So this is one thing I appreciate about my spouse.
Jaleesa is the most, I say this one a lot. I'm going to say two. She's the most determined person I've ever met. If I wasn't married to her and I were to hire someone, I'd hire Jaleesa every single time. If you tell her like this needs to get done by this time, she'll get it done. So she is the most determined person I ever met. And I'll tell a quick story about this. So she's very athletic, and I was programming for her. I was her programmer for in the gym a couple of years ago. And then we work off of metrics and percentages for some lifts that need to be at a certain percentage before you can move off them. And we're doing farmer carries, and she needed to lift a certain amount of weight. And we gradually would increase that by getting her stronger. But what she did is she put the weight she needed to put on and just mentally pushed herself through it, so she didn't have to ever do it again. Which, if you know, that doesn't work, right? You can't just say that, hey, I've used this weight and I just mentally pushed through to get through it. And you have to get stronger in that.
Yeah.
She's mentally determined. And then she is very sacrificial. She helps people whenever they need and takes care of them. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. If you can find a wife who understands, a husband and a wife need to both understand the reason marriages fail is because, my goodness, the biblical goal for marriage, you understand, it's to sacrifice for the other. It's not about you and if you go into that thinking, I deserve this, and you're both going to let each other down. You have to understand it's about serving each other and putting the Lord right smack in the middle. That's good. That's good stuff. Okay. Where are you at in the Bible right now? You chose that one as well.
Daniel.
Okay.
Just got out of the lion's den.
There you go. Well, that's encouraging stuff. Yeah, when you said in part 1, when you were talking about Job, that was one of the things that you and me had our old man moment. If we don't write it down, we forget it. And now it just came back to me. I just got out of Job recently. I'm doing it through the Bible in a year in chronological order. Haven't done that in a while. And you hinted to that in part 1 about, like, sometimes it's easy to say just trust God, follow God. But when bad things happen, he's God, but it's still like, how does trusting in him, every day you don't see something happening. It's like, I'm still trusting, but when is this going to be over? And it's like, man, yeah, that really spoke to me when God told Job, who are you? Were you here in the beginning when I did this, this, and this? Like, just chill. I'm doing something bigger behind the scenes you can't even understand. And sometimes that's just what we gotta rely on to get through it.
Trusting his character and not needing to see
Right. Yeah.
action. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, here we go. Hidden talent or something most people don't know about you. And making one or two teeth disappear and reappear, that isn't really one of them. I mean, that's
Not one of them.
most people know that.
I can juggle. It's not super exciting though. So
That
one of
is.
them-
That takes
I
talent.
can juggle 3 things. Can't do 4. Hidden talent would be I can juggle. I am my personality is that I get fixated on things for a certain time, and some stick, some don't. One of those was juggling. I can yo-yo pretty good too.
Wow. Like you can do tricks and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. If you had some video proof of that, you'd have to send that to me. Maybe I could insert that right here.
Yeah, I'll have to I'll have to try again. I could yo-yo really well.
I think he's saying, folks, he's a little rusty if we were to put
Yeah.
him on the
Yeah.
spot.
Let's try it again.
Okay, here's one. I meant to go over this with you earlier. It came to me last night. One of the news shows I watch, they do Fan Mail Friday, and this question they emailed in, I was like, I'm going to make that one of my segments. So if you don't have anything for it, it's fine. But going forward, I'm going to be giving this as an option. If you had theme music that played every time you entered a room, what would it be? And I know that's kind of putting you on the spot, but I just thought that was a fascinating, like, fan mail question.
Yeah, because I initially want to answer with what kind of music I would listen to. So I like jazz. I listen to lo-fi when I'm working. What would best describe me? It's a good question.
So just to give you some time, I don't know if you saw this or not, but when we were printing yours and Jaleesa's shirts the other day, we did kind of a quick little giveaway or whatever, a post. I said, if you could, these are our first shirts to leave the country. And I said, if you can, guess, if you can guess the correct country, you might win a prize. And the music that I put behind it on the Instagram post was the Canadian national anthem. I always like putting Easter eggs in the music track, according to my guests, whoever they are. One guest I recorded with, he mentioned polka music, so I threw some polka music in there. But for that little post, I put the Canadian national anthem, and I was like trying to give it away, but no one connected the dots. I finally did have someone guess Canada, but
Did they?
Yep.
I guess no one's really familiar with our anthem. That's a little bit. Yeah, I something from like maybe Frank Sinatra. I'm just gonna say that because I really enjoy it. And it kind of, I guess my personality would be more not too high, not too low,
Yeah.
not monotone, but like I like
Mellow
that.
and classy.
Yeah, like that whole feeling of generation.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, good stuff. Let's go to the final segment, the What Is Up segment. You chose a great one. I'm interested to hear what you have to say on that. We got like a solid 15 minutes left. I never get to the final segment with this much time left. This is awesome.
Cool.
What is up with the increasing celebrity influence in Christianity? That is what you chose.
So I don't really know what is up or why it's happening, because I mean, obviously I can't really interpret what God's doing, but I have been noticing it.
Yeah.
And maybe it is, again, kind of talking about, because celebrities are mostly in the Western world here with places plenty. I think a lot of them are probably reaching a point where I have everything. What am I? So what's like some of the celebrities would be Russell Brand.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Peterson actually said he believes in Jesus and the resurrection. And it's taken him years. So I think he's there. It's hard to know or not with him because he always has a philosophical answer too.
Yeah.
And then Denzel Washington.
Yep.
Denzel Washington. And I think God's putting some pretty biblically sound people in Joe Rogan's path.
Oh, definitely. Oh, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I've been covering that for a while. For a while. Yeah. It's I mean, I'm with you. Especially when you think about Hollywood. Uh, if you're going to come out and say that, it's going to cost you something. Uh,
Yes.
you think about guys like Chris Pratt, Mel Gibson, Mark Wahlberg, and some of these guys are maybe Catholic, and we don't got to get into the theology of it. I always tell people I don't need to know what the sign out in front of your church says. Tell me who Jesus is. Tell me how do we get right with God? How do we get to heaven? Tell me about the authority of the Bible, and that's all I need to know. Other than that, you can throw your church sign away. If we disagree on any of those things, you're going to need to show me your biblical, reasoning for believing the way you believe. And some
Yeah.
people might find out that their church tradition is holding, a higher priority than the word of God. And that's where we'll start talking about baptism and some of these traditions and things. And we'll get down to the basics pretty quick. But still, if they come out and proclaim faith or proclaim, the word of God or Jesus, it's going to cost them something. And then, but back in the day, we didn't really think about that. You had guys like Chuck Norris and Mr. T. These guys are adamant followers of Christ, and
Right.
they didn't really care. But today, it seems like it costs them something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think people are starting to see through the whole facade of, you talked about the start in the last podcast, how we're all the same, right? Whether we have
In
X,
value.
yeah, in value. Yeah. We're
Yep.
all the same in value. It doesn't really matter how many followers I have. I'm still the same. And I think that celebrities have been put onto a pedestal for so long. And a lot of people
Mhm.
are starting to, their eyes are opening up to that.
Yeah.
And these celebrities probably aren't feeling great, right? Like well, I have all this and I've sacrificed a lot spiritually to get this. And there's another interesting part. I have a sauna in my backyard, and sometimes I invite some guys over and we just talk about interesting things. And there's been some big names, Christian names that have had some scandals, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
And that's really noticeable.
Sure.
But someone like Russell Brand, right? Like gone through a lot of stuff. When he comes to Christ, like you already know about all this stuff in the past. I'm not saying it's okay,
Right.
but people aren't fixated on this, right? So like seeing this imperfect person, that we're all imperfect, but then really seeing that holistic transformation, I think it's really cool because he has this follower base already
Yeah.
that are non-Christians. So he's bringing them with, right? And then, hey, like,
Exposing them to that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So again, I don't really know why it's happening, but it is definitely happening more and more.
Right. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with the whole, I tell my audience, don't put anybody on a pedestal. No, but everybody in this world, if the Bible's true that we're all sinful, the best pastor, even your mom and dad, they're going to let you down. We're fallible human beings. Don't put anybody on a pedestal except for Christ. That's for sure. But when you were talking about the Christian music, you used a term. You said some of it you have to be careful because it can be a little bit fluffy, a little bit lacking on theology. And so now that we're talking about celebrity influence, I would say the same thing applies. Make sure just because they say they're believers or they're Christians, you still got to watch and kind of examine the fruit, so to speak. The Bible says you'll know a tree by its fruit. And not to be judgmental or anything, but just to make sure you don't start taking everything that they say and do as gospel when the only thing that should be gospel is the words of Christ. So I came across this thing the other day. Steve Harvey. I love Steve Harvey. He's very charismatic host of Family Feud and actor. And then he had this article in the Christian Post, and he said, and I'm quoting him here. He goes, "It's like television. Now there's over 800 channels on cable, and they're all pretty entertaining. So I'm pretty sure that to get to heaven, there's got to be more than one route." And I'm like, Steve, come on, man. I mean, John 14:6, Jesus said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life." It's sometimes you have to make sure and understand, are they, maybe they say they're believers, but are they followers? Are they in the word? And some of that's a journey. I get that. But to have a professing Christian say, hey, there's more than one way to get to heaven, get right with God. Well, then A, that contradicts the Bible, and B, what did Jesus even come for then? Some of these people, they want salvation without any repentance. That's kind of that's more where the Hollywood, they're willing to say maybe it's, almost if it's a trend to say I'm a Christian, but when the rubber meets the road, oh no, we're not all sinful. We don't all fall short. We can't call out any, God has no standards. God is love. So everything's okay. And then you start realizing, oh, they're off quite a bit on their theology or whatever. So I would just remind my audience that yes, God and Jesus, they actually hate sin. That they do. They love us, but they don't affirm our sin. You show me one example in the Bible other than people want to say Rahab when she lied to protect the spies. Show me one example where God affirmed sin. He didn't. He didn't to the woman at the well. He didn't. There is no. He loves us so much that he doesn't want us to stay in our sin. And some people just, they're just off on that. Or they may think, that there's still a works-based element to it, where you and I know it's faith in Jesus and that's it. Paul in Ephesians 2:8-10 says, you're saved by grace through faith. It's not of works. So no one should boast about that. You can't earn it. And so sometimes when we talk about, the celebrity influence in Christianity, it's awesome to see cases like Russell Brand. I've been following him closely too, just to hear, maybe I want to hear the things that he's saying. Is he getting actual sound Christian guidance, or is he a little off? So I always kind of look for those things, and I hope it's real and genuine, because yeah, it's like Joe Rogan. He is exposed. As long as Joe is searching for truth, or anyone, I'm all for it, because it's ultimately going to lead you in a certain direction, whether you've thought this way or not. So I'm all for truth seekers, whether they're atheists, skeptic, celebrities, it doesn't matter. That stuff encourages me, because he is putting people in front of him. I hope he has Lee Strobel on soon.
Yes, I was thinking that too.
Lee Strobel was on with Sean Ryan. He's got the big, yeah. And so I was sharing that the other day with friends of mine that I know like Sean Ryan, and Lee is not your typical guest. And Sean was one of those guys, his first couple posts when he was talking about faith, a few friends sent it to me, and I started hearing some of the things he said. And I said, either he's a young Christian or he's got some different views yet. And now you have a guy like Lee Strobel on. I'm like, you're going to hear the truth for sure. And that's why I just said, yeah, just seek truth, man. It's going to lead you right where it's supposed to. So that is good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Matt, you got anything else you want to share? You want to share where everyone can find your stuff if they didn't see your part 1 yet and they're just hopping on and seeing part 2 and they think, well, who is this guy? What makes him so special? What does he offer? You can plug that right here.
Sure. Absolutely. At Matt Chenard on Instagram, at Matt Chenard on YouTube, podcast. I try to keep it simple. MattChenard. And I help entrepreneurs create a cash flowing asset instead of time stealing liability, so they can spend more time with their family in ministry and not burn out and steward their gifts well and all that good stuff. So if that's something that sounds beneficial to you, feel free to reach out to me.
I'm telling you, go check his stuff out. Yeah, you'll find it beneficial. Definitely. I got to thank you for coming on, man. You are the first, large following person we've had on. I've been saying this is going to be our year. We're going to reach whoever we're supposed to reach. But by you taking the time and doing that, I was getting kind of down on not getting responses from people claiming to be Christians, but they're just too busy to even tell me that they're too busy. We've worked on this for a while, and you've always just sent an email when you could, and we made it happen. So I truly am thankful, man. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. It encourages me. That was a great episode. Some really good discussion, both part 1 and part 2. Man, I appreciate all that you shared and all that you do to encourage people in the business side of things and in the faith side of things. It's just really good stuff. I am positive that you encouraged our audience today with your episode and everything that you shared. Hopefully you got people thinking a little bit about what is up. All the business stuff, like maybe the typical work and business models aren't the most effective, the most beneficial. Maybe there's a different way, a better way to both be successful in business and in your personal life. I think that was really good. And then also towards the end there, like, what is up with the celebrity influence? Is there a shift going on? Are people just not satisfied, and now they're finally starting to give God a chance? Start looking into his word, start looking into the claims, start looking into Jesus. I think maybe that shift is starting to happen. That is awesome. So to my audience, have you caught yourself looking around lately and kind of asking the same question, like, what is up? Like what Matt mentioned, like Russell Brand and Denzel Washington. I think Denzel Washington actually didn't just come to faith, but he got ordained as a minister. And that was in the church, not online at some community college or whatever, and got his degree so he can do weddings. No, that's not being ordained. That's legally, I guess, able to do weddings. That's not being ordained by God, let me tell you. Or like, what is up with Joe Rogan, and who used to bash Christianity and the Bible, and now it seems to be that he is seeking and searching truth like never before. He is putting people in front of him that would only help lead him to a relationship with Jesus. His epic interview with scholar and apologist Wesley Huff to really dig into the authenticity of the Bible and the claims of Jesus and his resurrection, that is encouraging stuff. That is an episode for everyone, whether you're a Christian or you're an atheist or a skeptic. That is one you should check out, because that is a true look of what it looks like when you're searching for truth in the Bible. Okay? How is this stuff happening? Why is it happening? People are searching for truth and answers and purpose and meaning, and some people are just searching for hope because the world nor anything in it will ever deliver in those areas. We got to look up. You guys know my thing. You got to look up. If we look to God and his word, he will truly show us what is up. I think the Bible still gives the best answers and the best explanations for why the world is the way it is and why we are the way we are and do the things we do sometimes. I don't think that there is one biblical principle that if we apply it to our lives, it will not improve our way of life dramatically. It works. Not saying it'll be a pain-free life, but if you apply these biblical principles to your life, it will improve. If you need more help or you want to know more, join me any Sunday, FBC Dunkerton, or online on our Facebook page. You can watch the live stream if you're not in the area. You can email me, whatisuppodcast@gmail.com, and I will personally share the gospel with you so you can know for sure that God is real, that he loves you, and he wants a relationship with you. He might not leave you the way you are, though, but he does want a relationship with you. No matter who you are, what you've done, what you're doing, where you've been, he wants a relationship with you. That's why we were created. But we got to choose him. That's where the hope, the joy, the peace, the best things in life, that's where it comes from. If you haven't figured it out by now, there is nothing on this earth that will satisfy us completely and permanently. There's nothing else you can put your hope in. There's no person. Don't put anyone on a pedestal. There's no government, no president, no preacher or teacher. We got to look up. So if you're listening or watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to follow and leave that 5-star review. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you thought of Matt. Then let your opinion be heard by answering our poll question. I always come up with a good poll question at the end. Be sure and answer that. If you're watching in high definition on YouTube, be sure and like our channel, subscribe, leave a comment, hit that thumbs up button. I welcome feedback, questions, comments, even criticism. Go ahead and leave it. Help me hit my goal of doubling my subscribers and followers this year on all platforms by sharing with everyone you know. If you don't share, we don't grow. Thank you so much for listening. I hope it really encouraged you. Lord willing, I'll talk to you on the next one.